Ever wonder why some people seem to build wealth almost effortlessly, while others work their fingers to the bone and have little to show for it? It's a question that keeps a lot of us up at night. We see the headlines and success stories, and we can't help but wonder, what's the secret? Is it just dumb luck? A brilliant idea? Being born into the right family? For years, I thought that was the case, but then I started digging. When you look at the data behind the world's wealthiest people, it completely shatters those myths. Get this, somewhere between 70% and 79% of millionaires are self-made, meaning they didn't inherit their wealth. And it's not just millionaires. Recent data shows nearly 70% of new billionaires built their fortunes themselves. They are first-generation wealth creators. And when you dig deeper, you find they don't just have a few quirky habits in common. They share a specific, unified, entrepreneurial approach to life. This isn't about telling everyone to quit their job and launch a startup. It's a core mindset, a fundamental operating system you can install starting today, no matter where you are financially. It's the single biggest thing separating the self-made wealthy from everyone else. So, if you're tired of playing a game where someone else made the rules, you're in the right place. We're about to break down the 5 pillars of this entrepreneurial life approach. And if you're serious about changing your financial future, you'll want to subscribe, because this is the kind of practical knowledge we share here every week. Let's get into it. Section 1. The operator mindset. They treat life like a business they own. Here's the first and most fundamental shift. Most people are employees in their own lives. They follow the script society wrote for them. Go to school, get a good job, punch the clock for 40 years, and hope the retirement fund is enough. They react to things. They wait for a raise, for the economy to improve, for an opportunity to fall into their lap. They are passive passengers on their own financial journey. Self-made millionaires, on the other hand, are the CEOs of Me Incorporated. They stop letting life happen to them and start running it like a business they own. They are proactive. They set the mission, they track the key metrics, and they hold themselves accountable for the bottom line. Think about it. A CEO doesn't just wander into the office and see what happens. They review the financials, analyze performance, study the competition, and make strategic moves to grow the company. The self-made wealthy apply this exact same discipline to their own lives. Their health, their skills, their relationships, and their bank account are all departments in their personal enterprise. Warren Buffett is a perfect example. Long before he was the Oracle of Omaha, he was basically a one-man business. He started by selling Coke and chewing gum door to door when he was a kid. He wasn't waiting for some grand plan. He was executing, learning, and reinvesting. One of his key principles is to figure out your strengths. That's classic CEO thinking. Know your company's core assets. What's your competitive advantage? The other 90% don't think this way. They might know what they're good at, but they rarely think about how to strategically use those strengths in the marketplace of life. They focus on their job description, not their personal balance sheet. So here's your first move. Start acting like the CEO of your life. Tonight, sit down and do a little life audit. What are your assets? And I don't just mean money. I mean your skills, your knowledge, your network, your energy. What are your liabilities, your debts? Sure, but also your time-wasting habits, your limiting beliefs, your unhealthy routines. What is the mission of Me Incorporated? What do you actually want to achieve? Until you treat your life with the seriousness of a CEO running their business, you'll always be at the mercy of outside forces. You'll remain an employee in your own life. Section 2. The partnership principle. They build strategic alliances, not just networks. Here's another place the 99% gets it wrong: networking. For most people, networking is a chore. You go to an event, collect business cards, add people on LinkedIn, and hope one of these loose connections might do you a favor someday. It's all about quantity over quality. A network that's a mile wide and an inch deep. The self-made don't network. They build deep, strategic alliances. They get that the right partnership is a force multiplier, the kind of 1 + 1 = 10 math that builds empires. They look for quality, not quantity. They're not asking, what can this person do for me? They're asking, what incredible things can we do together? The best example of this is the partnership between Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Their alliance spanned decades and was the engine behind Berkshire Hathaway's incredible success. Buffett didn't just see Munger as a colleague. He called him part older brother, part loving father. He credited Munger for always offering a new angle that made him rethink everything. This wasn't a casual connection, it was a profound intellectual alliance that generated billions in value. This goes beyond business partners. It applies to mentors, mastermind groups, and even your spouse. The research shows self-made millionaires are incredibly deliberate about who they spend time with. They actively seek out people who challenge them, complement their weaknesses, and push them to a higher standard. When N.R. Narayana Murthy co-founded Infosys, his partnerships didn't just build his own fortune. They created 6 other billionaires and over 4,000 millionaires. That's the power of a real alliance. The average person often lets their circle be defined by convenience. Coworkers, old friends, neighbors. There's nothing wrong with that, but those relationships are rarely strategic alliances designed for mutual growth. Your action step is to stop networking and start building alliances. Figure out the gaps in your own skills and character. If you're a big picture visionary, you need a detail-oriented operator. If you're cautious, you need someone who pushes you to take smart risks. Find your Charlie Munger. This could be a mentor you check in with once a month, a small accountability group, or a collaborator for a new project. Invest deeply in a few key relationships instead of spreading yourself thin across hundreds. That's the kind of leverage that builds legacies. Section 3. The Resource Allocation Framework. They invest resources, not just spend money. Want to predict someone's financial future? Don't look at their paycheck. Look at how they use their resources. The 99% see their resources, especially money, in a straight line. Earn it, spend it, and maybe save a little of what's left. Money is for bills, groceries, and the occasional vacation. Time is something to be spent or killed. Energy is something you just hope you have enough of. The self-made wealthy have a radically different playbook. They see every resource, time, money, energy, and focus as a form of capital. And the point of capital isn't to be spent, it's to be invested for a future return. Every decision is filtered through the lens of ROI, return on investment. They are constantly asking, what is the highest and best use of this resource right now? Research into the mindset of first-generation millionaires confirms this. They don't see wealth as a way to buy luxuries. They see it as a tool that buys them freedom and options. That's a classic investor mindset. An expensive car is a depreciating asset that limits your future options. Investing in a new skill, a business, or an income-producing asset multiplies your future options. Family offices for the ultra-wealthy often allocate nearly 29% of their assets to things like private equity and venture capital, aggressively deploying capital for future growth. Buffett himself famously says his favorite holding period is forever, letting compound interest do the heavy lifting. The average person spends their weekend binge-watching a new show and scrolling social media. They call it free time. A future millionaire sees that same weekend as 48 hours of capital. They might spend it reading to gain knowledge, exercising to boost their energy, or working on a side project to open a new income stream. They see it as an investment. So here's your task. Start tracking your resources like an investor. For 1 week, track your time in 30-minute blocks. At the end of each day, label that time. How much was investment, learning, deep work, health? How much was maintenance, chores, commuting? And how much was consumption, mindless scrolling, passive entertainment? The results might be a wake-up call. Then, do the same with your money. Go through your last bank statement and categorize every expense as either an investment or pure consumption. The goal is to consciously shift that ratio from consumption to investment. That shift, compounded over time, is the path to wealth. Section 4. The problem-solving mandate. They hunt for problems, not avoid them. Our default setting as humans is to seek comfort and avoid problems. Problems are stressful. They're obstacles standing between us and an easy life. The 99% is conditioned to run away from problems. A difficult boss, a frustrating process at work, a product that doesn't work right. These are just annoyances to be complained about. Self-made millionaires operate on the complete opposite mandate. They are problem hunters. They understand a basic truth of capitalism. Money is just a byproduct of solving problems. Therefore, every unsolved problem is a hidden opportunity for wealth. The bigger the problem you solve, the bigger the potential payday. They don't run from the fire. They run towards it, because they know that whoever solves the problem gets the reward. The evidence is everywhere. Jack Cowan built a massive fortune because he spotted a problem. 1960s Australia didn't have a major fried chicken franchise. He solved it by bringing KFC to the country. Kai Dong King built a billion-dollar empire by first tackling a simple problem. Kids wanted cheap, fun toys. He started with toy trumpets and eventually built Alpha Group into an animation and entertainment giant. These people didn't just stumble into their fortunes. They actively looked for friction and unmet needs, then built a solution. This mindset is why Warren Buffett says not to be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are an inevitable part of solving hard problems. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying to solve anything difficult. You're playing it safe in the comfort zone, where all the easy problems have already been solved. Your action step is to retrain your brain to see problems as opportunities. For the next week, carry a small notebook or open a notes app. Your only job is to be a problem spotter. What's a tedious process at your job? Write it down. What's a common complaint you hear from friends? Write it down. What product or service in your own life is frustrating or subpar? Write it down. At the end of the week, look at your list. You're now starting at a list of potential business ideas. You don't have to act on them. The point is to shift your perspective from a problem avoider to a problem seeker. When you start seeing problems as puzzles instead of punishments, you begin operating on a completely different level than the 99%. Section 5. The Legacy Blueprint. They build systems to outlast them. For most people, the financial finish line is retirement. The goal is to save up enough money to stop working and live comfortably. The thinking rarely goes beyond their own lifespan. Self-made millionaires are playing a much longer game. They aren't just building personal wealth, they are building a legacy. They think in multi-generational terms from day one. This isn't about ego. It's about a deep-seated awareness of a terrifying statistic. Roughly 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the second generation, and 90% lose it by the third. It's the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations phenomenon. They know how hard they work to build something from nothing, and their greatest fear is that their kids, who never experienced the struggle, will squander it. This fear drives them to build robust systems, structures, and most importantly, values that can be passed down. They aren't just passing on assets, they're trying to pass on the mindset that created those assets. This is more critical than ever as we enter the Great Wealth Transfer, where an estimated $84 trillion will be passed down to younger generations over the next couple of decades. The self-made wealthy are preparing for this by setting up family offices, creating detailed estate plans, and teaching the next generation how to be good stewards of capital, often through philanthropy or impact investing. The 99% aren't having these conversations. Inheritance is often a taboo topic, and creating a family financial playbook seems like something only for the mega rich. But the principle applies to everyone. Here is your final action step, and it's the most forward-thinking of all. Start building your legacy blueprint today. even if your entire estate is a few $100 in a savings account. Start by documenting your financial system. How do you budget? How do you invest? Write it down. Next, write down your values around money, work, and giving back. What do you want future generations of your family to know? Finally, start teaching. Talk to your kids, your spouse, or even a younger sibling about assets and liabilities, budgeting, and long-term thinking. You are creating the financial culture of your family for generations to come. I know this is a lot to take in. Moving from a consumer mindset to a CEO mindset is a huge shift. So, let's recap the 5 pillars of the entrepreneurial life approach. First, the operator mindset. You are the CEO of your life, not an employee. Second, the partnership principle. Build deep alliances, not shallow networks. Third, the resource allocation framework. Invest your resources as capital. Don't just spend them. Fourth, the problem-solving mandate. Hunt for problems because they are the raw material of wealth. And fifth, the legacy blueprint. Build systems and values that will outlast you. The fact that most millionaires are self-made isn't just a cool statistic. It's your permission slip. It's definitive proof that where you start does not have to be where you end up. The gap between where you are now and where you want to be isn't about the money in your bank account, not at first. It's about the mindset in your head. It's the difference between being a passive participant and an active operator. Adopt this entrepreneurial approach. Start making decisions like a CEO, investing like a capitalist, and thinking like a dynasty builder. If you do, you won't just change your bank account. You will fundamentally change your future. Thanks for watching.